Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that touches the lives of so many people, often without them even realizing it. The psychology of people who are afraid of intimacy. If you've ever felt a pull toward connection but found yourself pushing away when things get too close, or if you've wondered why some relationships seem to fizzle out just as they're heating up, this might resonate with you. Fear of intimacy isn't just about romantic relationships. It's a complex psychological pattern that can affect friendships, family bonds, and even professional interactions. In this exploration, we'll unpack what fear of intimacy really means, where it comes from, how it manifests in everyday life, and most importantly, what can be done about it. By the end, I hope you'll have a clearer understanding of this fear and perhaps even some tools to address it in your own life or in the lives of those around you. Let's start by defining what we mean by fear of intimacy. At its core, intimacy is about allowing someone to see the real you, the vulnerabilities, the flaws, the unfiltered emotions. It's that deep emotional closeness where you share your innermost thoughts, feelings, and experiences without the armor of pretense. But for some people, the idea of letting someone in that close triggers alarm bells. Fear of intimacy is essentially an avoidance of this emotional vulnerability. It's not that these individuals don't want connection. In fact, they often crave it deeply. But the risk of potential pain, rejection, or loss feels too overwhelming to bear. Psychologists often link this fear to attachment theory, a framework developed by John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth. Attachment theory suggests that our early relationships with caregivers shape how we form bonds as adults. If a child experiences inconsistent care, say, a parent who is sometimes affectionate and other times distant or neglectful, they might develop an anxious or avoidant attachment style. Avoidant attachment, in particular, is closely tied to fear of intimacy. People with this style learn early on that relying on others leads to disappointment, so they build walls to protect themselves. They become self-reliant to a fault, viewing emotional dependence as a weakness. But attachment isn't the only factor. Trauma plays a huge role too. Imagine growing up in a household where emotions were dismissed or punished. Maybe a parent would say things like, "Stop crying, big boys don't cry," or perhaps there was outright abuse that taught you vulnerability equals danger. These experiences etch deep into the psyche, creating a subconscious belief that closeness invites harm. Even positive relationships can be tainted by past betrayals, a cheating partner, a friend who ghosts you after you open up. Over time, these accumulate into a fortress around the heart. Cultural and societal influences can't be ignored either. In a world that often glorifies independence and self-sufficiency, especially in Western cultures, admitting you need someone can feel like admitting defeat. Social media exacerbates this by presenting curated, perfect lives, making real intimacy seem messy and undesirable in comparison. For men, societal norms around masculinity can amplify fear of intimacy, as showing emotions is sometimes equated with weakness. Women, on the other hand, might face pressures to be nurturing but still encounter internal conflicts if they've been hurt before. Now, let's think about how this fear shows up in real life. It's not always obvious. People afraid of intimacy aren't necessarily loners huddled in isolation. Often, they maintain surface-level relationships quite well. They might have a wide circle of acquaintances, excel at small talk, and even enter romantic partnerships. But when the relationship demands more, sharing fears, discussing future plans, or dealing with conflict, they start to withdraw. One common sign is emotional unavailability. This person might be great at the fun, light parts of a relationship, dates, laughter, physical affection. But ask about their past, their dreams, or their insecurities, and they clam up. They change the subject, make a joke, or suddenly become busy with work. Another manifestation is self-sabotage. Just as things are going well, they pick fights over trivial matters, create distance by traveling excessively, or even cheat as a way to push the partner away before they can be hurt. In friendships, fear of intimacy might look like always being the listener but never the sharer. You're the one everyone comes to for advice, but you rarely let others support you. At work, it could mean avoiding team collaborations that require trust or steering clear of mentorship opportunities where personal growth, and thus vulnerability, is involved. Let's consider some examples to make this more relatable. Take Sarah, a successful marketing executive in her mid-30s. On the outside, she has it all, a thriving career, a beautiful apartment, and an active social life. But her romantic relationships never last beyond a few months. She meets someone, feels the spark, enjoys the honeymoon phase, but as soon as her partner starts talking about meeting family or planning a vacation together, panic sets in. She finds flaws in them. Suddenly, their laugh is annoying, or their job isn't ambitious enough. Deep down, Sarah's fear stems from her childhood, where her parents' volatile marriage taught her that love leads to chaos and pain. Or think about Mike, a freelance artist who's incredibly talented but struggles with collaboration. He turns down joint projects because he works better alone, but really, it's the fear of criticism or rejection that holds him back. His fear of intimacy extends to his personal life too. He's had a string of casual flings but avoids anything serious, convinced that opening up will lead to being controlled or abandoned, echoing his experience with an overbearing father. These patterns don't just affect the individual, they ripple out to partners and loved ones. Being in a relationship with someone afraid of intimacy can feel like chasing a mirage, always sensing the potential for depth but never quite reaching it. Partners might feel unloved, confused, or even blame themselves, leading to cycles of frustration and heartbreak. Delving deeper into the psychology, fear of intimacy often intersects with other mental health issues. Anxiety disorders can amplify it, as the uncertainty of relationships triggers worry about worst-case scenarios. Depression might make someone withdraw further, seeing intimacy as an energy drain they can't afford. Personality disorders, like borderline or narcissistic traits, can complicate things too. For instance, someone with narcissistic tendencies might fear intimacy because it threatens their carefully constructed self-image. True closeness requires admitting imperfections. From a neurobiological perspective, fear of intimacy can be linked to the brain's stress response. When we get close to someone, oxytocin, the bonding hormone, is released, but for those with fear, this might be overshadowed by cortisol, the stress hormone. Past traumas can wire the amygdala, our fear center, to overreact to emotional cues, making intimacy feel like a threat rather than a comfort. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, perspectives highlight distorted thinking patterns. People afraid of intimacy might engage in all-or-nothing thinking, if I let them in, they'll hurt me completely. Or catastrophizing, sharing this secret will end the relationship. These thoughts become self-fulfilling prophecies, reinforcing the fear. Now, let's explore the long-term effects. Living with fear of intimacy can lead to chronic loneliness, even amid company. It's that hollow feeling of being surrounded by people but never truly connected. Over time, this isolation can contribute to physical health issues. Studies show that strong social bonds are linked to better immune function, lower blood pressure, and longer lifespans. Without intimacy, people miss out on these benefits. In relationships, the fear can create toxic dynamics. One partner pulls away, the other pursues harder, leading to a pursuer-distancer pattern that's exhausting for both. If children are involved, they might inherit these attachment issues, perpetuating the cycle across generations. Professionally, fear of intimacy can stunt growth. Networking, which relies on building genuine relationships, becomes challenging. Leadership roles require vulnerability, admitting mistakes, asking for help, which might be avoided, limiting career advancement. But here's the good news. Fear of intimacy isn't a life sentence. It's a learned behavior, and like any habit, it can be unlearned with awareness and effort. The first step is recognition. Often, people don't realize their patterns until a relationship implodes or a therapist points it out. Journaling can help. Reflect on past relationships, notice when you feel the urge to withdraw, and trace it back to root causes. Therapy is incredibly effective here. Attachment-based therapies help rewire those early patterns, teaching secure attachment through a safe therapeutic relationship. CBT can challenge those distorted thoughts, replacing them with healthier ones. For trauma-related fears, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, can process painful memories, reducing their emotional charge. Self-help strategies abound too. Start small. Practice vulnerability in low-stakes situations, like sharing a minor insecurity with a trusted friend. Build self-esteem through affirmations and achievements, as a stronger sense of self makes intimacy less threatening. Mindfulness practices, like meditation, can help stay present during emotional moments instead of fleeing. In relationships, communication is key. If you're with someone who fears intimacy, patience and understanding go a long way. Encourage without pushing. Create a safe space where vulnerability is rewarded, not punished. For the person with the fear, choosing partners who are secure and consistent can provide a model for healthy intimacy. Books like Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller offer insights into attachment styles, while The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown champions vulnerability as a strength. Online communities, support groups, and apps focused on mental health can provide connection without immediate pressure. As we wrap up, remember that fearing intimacy doesn't make you broken, it makes you human. We've all got defenses built from life's knocks, but the beauty of psychology is its emphasis on growth. By understanding the roots of this fear, from attachment wounds to cultural pressures, we can begin to dismantle those walls brick by brick. It's not about forcing closeness, but about choosing it consciously, knowing the rewards outweigh the risks. Deeper love, authentic connections, and a richer life. If this topic hits home, consider reaching out to a professional or starting that journal today. You're not alone in this, and change is possible. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the psychology of fear of intimacy. Until next time, take care of your heart. Word count, 1,456. Wait, that's not enough. The user asked for 2,500 to 3,000 words. I need to expand this significantly. I miscounted or underestimated. Let me think how to make it longer. Expand each section. Intro, more anecdotes, statistics. Causes, dive deeper into attachment types, examples, research studies. Signs, more detailed list with explanations. Effects, personal, relational, societal. Overcoming, step-by-step guide, more therapies, exercises. Add subsections, quotes from experts, hypothetical case studies. Aim for detailed, long form. Control 12, hashtag the psychology of people who are afraid of intimacy. Hello, and thank you for tuning in. In this in-depth exploration, we're going to delve into a profoundly human experience that affects countless individuals across all walks of life. The psychology of people who are afraid of intimacy. This isn't just a fleeting discomfort or a quirky personality trait. It's a deep-seated pattern that can shape relationships, self-perception, and overall well-being in ways that are often subtle yet profoundly impactful. Whether you're someone who recognizes this fear in yourself, or you're trying to understand a loved one who seems to keep everyone at arm's length, this discussion aims to shed light on the intricacies of this phenomenon. We'll cover its definitions, origins, manifestations, consequences, and paths to healing, drawing from established psychological theories, real-world examples, and practical insights. By the time we're done, my goal is for you to walk away with a comprehensive understanding that empowers empathy, self-reflection, and positive change. To set the stage properly, let's begin by clearly defining what fear of intimacy entails. Intimacy, in psychological terms, goes beyond physical closeness or romantic gestures. It's the emotional bridge that connects two people on a profound level, involving the sharing of thoughts, feelings, vulnerabilities, and experiences without fear of judgment or rejection. It's about being seen, heard, and accepted for who you truly are. Fear of intimacy, therefore, is an internalized aversion to this level of openness. It's not that those affected don't desire connection, quite the opposite. Many yearn for it intensely. However, the prospect of emotional exposure triggers a protective mechanism, often rooted in past experiences, that equates closeness with danger. This fear can manifest in various forms, from mild hesitation in sharing personal stories to outright avoidance of any relationship that demands depth. It's important to note that fear of intimacy isn't classified as a clinical disorder in the DSM-5, but it's a common thread in many mental health discussions, particularly in the realms of attachment disorders, anxiety, and relational trauma. Psychologists estimate that a significant portion of the population, perhaps as high as 20 to 30% based on various studies, exhibits traits of intimacy avoidance to some degree, though exact numbers are hard to pin down due to its subjective nature. Why does this matter? In a world where human connection is essential for mental health, fearing intimacy can lead to isolation, unfulfilled relationships, and a diminished quality of life. It affects not just romantic partnerships but also friendships, family dynamics, and even professional collaborations. Understanding it isn't about labeling or pathologizing people. It's about fostering compassion and providing tools for growth. As we proceed, keep in mind that everyone has some level of defense against vulnerability. It's a survival instinct. But when it becomes a barrier to genuine living, it's worth examining. Moving into the heart of our discussion, let's explore the origins of fear of intimacy. Like many psychological patterns, it often traces back to childhood and early developmental experiences. Attachment theory, pioneered by British psychologist John Bowlby in the 1950s and 1960s, provides a foundational framework here. Bowlby posited that infants form attachment styles based on their interactions with primary caregivers, which serve as blueprints for adult relationships. There are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious-preoccupied, dismissive-avoidant, and fearful-avoidant. Fear of intimacy is most closely associated with the avoidant styles. In dismissive-avoidant attachment, individuals learn to suppress their emotional needs because caregivers were emotionally unavailable or rejecting. They grow up valuing independence above all, viewing reliance on others as a sign of weakness. Fearful-avoidant attachment adds a layer of anxiety. These people desire closeness but fear it due to past betrayals or abuse, leading to a push-pull dynamic. For instance, consider a child whose parent is inconsistently responsive, affectionate one day, distant the next. The child learns that emotional needs aren't reliably met, so they adapt by minimizing those needs. As adults, they might say things like, "I don't need anyone," but beneath that is a deep-seated fear of abandonment or engulfment. Research from Mary Ainsworth's Strange Situation experiments in the 1970s demonstrated how these patterns emerge early, with avoidant children showing little distress when separated from caregivers, masking their true feelings. Beyond attachment, trauma is a major contributor. Childhood trauma, such as emotional neglect, physical abuse, or witnessing parental conflict, can instill a belief that intimacy is unsafe. If a child is punished for expressing emotions or if their vulnerability is exploited, they internalize that opening up leads to pain. Adult traumas, like heartbreak from infidelity, divorce, or loss, can reinforce this. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, often intersects with fear of intimacy, as survivors hypervigilantly guard against anything that might trigger old wounds. Genetic and biological factors play a role too. Some studies suggest a heritable component to attachment styles, with genes influencing temperament and sensitivity to stress. Neurobiologically, the brain's limbic system, particularly the amygdala, can become hypersensitive in those with fear of intimacy. When faced with emotional closeness, it triggers a fight-or-flight response, flooding the body with cortisol and making vulnerability feel like a threat to survival. Cultural and societal contexts further shape this fear. In individualistic societies like the United States, self-reliance is idolized, often at the expense of interdependence. Media portrayals of relationships emphasize passion and drama, but rarely the mundane vulnerability of long-term intimacy. Gender norms exacerbate this. Men are socialized to equate emotional expression with emasculation, leading to higher rates of avoidant behaviors, while women might internalize fears from societal pressures around perfection or codependency. Personality traits also influence susceptibility. Introverts or those high in neuroticism, a big 5 personality trait, might naturally lean toward emotional guardedness. Conditions like autism spectrum disorder can involve difficulties with social cues, mimicking fear of intimacy, though the roots differ. Now, let's examine how fear of intimacy manifests in daily life. It's rarely blatant. Instead, it's a series of subtle behaviors that maintain distance. One key sign is difficulty with emotional expression. People might intellectualize feelings, talking about problems logically without revealing how they truly feel, or use humor to deflect serious conversations. Another indicator is a pattern of short-lived relationships. They excel at the initial stages, flirting, excitement, novelty. But as commitment looms, discussing exclusivity, cohabitation, or long-term plans, they sabotage. This could mean nitpicking flaws, creating conflicts, or suddenly losing interest. In established relationships, they might maintain physical intimacy while avoiding emotional depth, leading to partnerships that feel shallow. In non-romantic contexts, fear shows up as reluctance to ask for help. At work, they prefer solo tasks over team efforts, fearing that collaboration exposes weaknesses. In friendships, they're the reliable advisor but never the one seeking support, keeping interactions one-sided. Behavioral patterns include busyness as a barrier, filling schedules to avoid deep interactions, or using technology as a shield, preferring texts over face-to-face talks. Physically, they might maintain personal space or avoid touch that feels too affectionate. Emotionally, there's often ambivalence, a desire for connection clashing with terror of it. This internal conflict can lead to anxiety, depression, or substance use as coping mechanisms. Signs also include perfectionism, where individuals believe they must be flawless to be worthy of love, or control issues, where they dictate relationship terms to minimize vulnerability. To illustrate, let's consider detailed case studies. First, there's Elena, a 28-year-old teacher. Elena grew up with a single mother who worked multiple jobs, leaving little time for emotional bonding. As an adult, Elena dates frequently but ends things when partners want more commitment. She rationalizes it as not feeling the spark, but therapy reveals its fear of repeating her mother's abandonment by her father. Elena's signs include avoiding discussions about her childhood and using work as an excuse for unavailability. Then there's Raj, a 42-year-old engineer. Raj's strict upbringing emphasized achievement over emotions, with his parents dismissing feelings as distractions. In his marriage, he provides financially but struggles with affection, often retreating to his home office during arguments. His fear manifests in criticism of his wife's neediness, projecting his own discomfort with vulnerability. Over time, this has led to marital strain and his own sense of emptiness. These examples highlight how fear of intimacy isn't uniform. It adapts to individual contexts but consistently hinders fulfillment. Shifting to the impacts, fear of intimacy casts a long shadow. On a personal level, it fosters chronic loneliness, a lonely-in-a-crowd sensation where superficial connections abound but true belonging is absent. This can erode self-esteem, as individuals internalize beliefs like, "I'm unlovable," or "I'm better off alone." Mental health suffers, higher risks of anxiety, depression, and even suicidal ideation, as unmet needs for connection are fundamental to human thriving. Relationally, it creates imbalance. Partners feel rejected, leading to resentment or their own withdrawal. In families, children might learn avoidant patterns, perpetuating intergenerational cycles. Socially, networks remain broad but shallow, limiting support during crises. Physiologically, the stress of suppressed emotions can manifest in health issues, weakened immunity, cardiovascular problems, or sleep disturbances. Research from the Harvard Grant Study, a decades-long longitudinal project, underscores that quality relationships are the strongest predictor of long-term health and happiness. Those fearing intimacy miss this buffer. Economically and professionally, it can impede advancement. Avoiding mentorship or networking means missed opportunities. In leadership, emotional intelligence is key, and vulnerability fosters trust. Societally, widespread fear of intimacy contributes to rising rates of singleness, divorce, and social isolation, as seen in trends like Japan's hikikomori or the US's loneliness epidemic. It also influences cultural narratives, with media often romanticizing lone wolves over vulnerable heroes. Fortunately, overcoming fear of intimacy is achievable with intention and support. Awareness is the cornerstone. Recognize patterns through self-reflection, perhaps via journaling prompts like, "When do I pull away?" or "What fears arise in close moments?" Therapy offers structured paths. Attachment-focused therapy helps rebuild secure bases, while CBT challenges cognitive distortions. Reframing intimacy means loss to intimacy can bring joy with risks managed. For trauma, therapies like EMDR or somatic experiencing address bodily held fears. Self-practices include gradual exposure. Start with safe disclosures, like sharing a hobby passion, building to deeper topics. Mindfulness meditation cultivates presence, reducing reactive withdrawal. Building self-compassion via exercises from Kristin Neff's work counters perfectionism. In relationships, foster secure dynamics. Communicate fears openly, set boundaries, and choose partners who model healthy intimacy. Couples therapy, such as emotionally focused therapy, EFT, by Sue Johnson, can repair bonds. Lifestyle changes help. Engage in group activities that encourage sharing, like book clubs or support groups. Read resources like Hold Me Tight, by Sue Johnson, or Daring Greatly, by Brené Brown, who argues vulnerability is the birthplace of connection. Progress isn't linear. Setbacks are normal. Celebrate small wins, like sustaining a deep conversation without fleeing. In conclusion, the psychology of people afraid of intimacy reveals a poignant truth. Our deepest fears often stem from our deepest needs, for safety, love, acceptance. By tracing its roots in attachment, trauma, and culture, recognizing its signs and impacts, and embracing paths to healing, we can transform barriers into bridges. If this resonates, know that seeking help is a strength, not a weakness. You're capable of the intimacy you deserve, and the world is richer when we connect authentically. Thank you for exploring this with me. May it inspire your own journey toward openness.